So do you think, if I could just piggyback off of that observation, Ruth, do you think that those verbs that you were talking about, like make a claim and observe and evaluate and all those things, do you think that requires new skills of the students?
Um,
In
I think
comparison?
I think it requires them to first to understand what those words mean, and then there is a skill that goes behind the meaning of the word. To evaluate something requires a deeper level of analysis that's different than spit back the answer, that you memorized. So taking this information and somehow making an assessment of that, or supporting it or refuting it, or whatever that they have to work with, it is definitely a higher order needed. And I almost feel like the students need they need more. This is how we ended our room. We need a little more background to actually use that type of evaluative skill, that they need back. And that maybe, if everyone was in the perfect world, the middle schoolers would come in with that background knowledge. So now you're ready to jump into, let's use it. But we as teachers have to still assume to some degree that our kids don't have it. And so Eve was saying what she does with her students, for example, is it's like a little bit of a flipped reality where the kids have to prep for class with background information in order to be able to come in to do this higher level thinking. This is not a value judgment. It's not good, bad, whatever. It's a shift. Right. It's a shift in what different. It's a shift that's different, that's needed.
Yeah, there's definitely some shifts, right? There's definitely some shifts in what the students are being asked to do. And I see that on a lot of the different sides, like more model type questions I see from group 4, or in group 3, more phenomena based style questions, more explanations needed for responses. New test uses more CER language. Yeah.
I'm finding it a lot more like ambiguous, like as a person who took a lot of biology, like looking at this question with the input output model, like that's something we're doing with the students right now with inputs and outputs of cellular respiration. But like it says inputs, process, outputs, and like me as a biology person, I'm like, okay, zooxanthellae do photosynthesis, but they also do cellular respiration, and it just says illustrate the process occurring in it, but it doesn't mention which process. Like it mentions the word photosynthesis in the text like way before, but it doesn't like I don't know how kids are supposed to get that that's what they're looking for. I don't even know if that's what they're looking for, to be honest.
So you're looking at...
Okay, so it is photosynthesis. That's what I guessed it would be, but I don't understand how the kids would get there. Like it feels like if they had done cellular respiration, it would be equally right, because they don't clarify that they're looking for photosynthesis.
Right. So you're talking about the question cluster right here, New York State living environment. Oh, that's the old one. My bad. Here we go. New York State living environment.
Yeah, it just feels like it's not as direct. Like as someone who knows a lot of science, am still like, well, which process are they looking for? Because they do a lot of processes.
One right here.
And it mentions matter and energy, but like they also get energy through respiration. So how do I know that they're referring to photosynthesis in that question?
Got it. Okay.
Because it's zooxanthellae. That's what I thought of. I thought of photosynthesis.
Well, I get that. I immediately thought of that because it says that, but I also teach that plants do respiration and photosynthesis. So like you can't just say that like they're looking for photosynthesis. They mention, at one point in the text, it said that they're a photosynthetic algae, but it never mentioned, like when it asked for what process, it never mentioned that like which specific process they're doing.
This says complete. It illustrates the process occurring located at the cells of chloropollyp.
Right. So like,
and it could have been
given time, cells are doing multiple processes
which
related to energy.
So in this case, I would say that the students would have to have read the text also. The text above is and I noticed that even today doing our baseline assessment, students are not reading the text. So say a student didn't read the text above here and just went to the question because they're like, oh, we've learned this in class. I know what kind of model it is. And as you said, we're bio experts in this case. We're automatically going to think several processes. But the question specifically requires the students to read the phenomena or the case or the scenario above. And a lot of students are struggling with the fact that they have to read a short excerpt. So without that component, they're going to struggle with even doing any form of models.
Yeah, but I mean, I even read the excerpt and there's nothing that like explicitly makes it clear to me as a science expert that they want photosynthesis there. They say it's a photosynthetic algae, but beyond that, they don't ever they don't ever mention that that's the process that's happening with this coral bleaching.
So what I would say, I'm just thinking as someone who, has graded millions of regents in my life, so many regents. If they write a statement and support that statement with accurate support, you as the teacher have the right to give them credit for it.
Yeah.
This is your right. This is your domain. And that's exactly what you're looking to have is a student make a claim, support it with evidence, provide their reasoning, and if it's accurate, so it might be more than one answer to the question, depending on if you felt that the paragraph was ambiguous. Yeah. The second thing I would say is we do have to keep the same good old-fashioned rules in play, which is when taking an examination, the number one first thing you need to do is read the instructions. And so if it says questions 52 to 58 will whatever on this paragraph, then those kids need to highlight it and they can't budge before they've read that section. But your critique, Madison, is to the paragraph that was given. Yep. And granted, the exam has not yet been made up. So hopefully people are listening in and will say, oh, I'm hearing teachers who are saying that our paragraphs are too ambiguous, not clear enough. That would be lovely. But if not, then you have the right to say, my zooplankton also carries out respiration, which is an energy process. And this is the way it does it. And so this child is going to get full credit for what she wrote or he wrote.
I noticed with the,
sorry,
I'm getting echo. Okay. I noticed that with even the labs, there is quite a bit of ambiguity. I think it mirrors the way research is actually done in actual research labs. It's not cookie cutter. In this particular question, I think where it says in the passage, the photosynthesis, I think it's providing the context in which they want them to interpret the information. But I do agree with Madison 100%. These new tests are designed specifically to have the ambiguity. And I think, especially with the short response, the idea is to elicit multiple ways of interpreting the information, but must be based on evidence. So I do agree with you also, Ruth. And hopefully it will be to the students' advantage since there are multiple responses that are correct.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's in the answer sheet, it said, but are not limited to. So I agree with Ruth as well. We're going to stick with Madison's expertise and say, okay, when you're norming the exam with other colleagues, we're going to say, okay, we notice that a trend of students are responding cellular respiration. Maybe the question itself was not clear or the excerpt was not clear. And then we could come to a common consensus that photosynthesis or cellular respiration is an acceptable answer.
Yeah, so I think one thing that I've learned at least in Jersey as implementing with this information and this style is that sometimes prompts are messy on purpose. So they're engineered to be a little bit messy because it requires the students to think, make claims from evidence. So what I would expect, at least in that pre-reading, I guess, that paragraph, when they say it's a photosynthetic algae, some kids would definitely clue in on that and be like, okay, that's a photosynthetic algae, so it's photosynthesis. I do agree, Madison, that with you, that some of my other students might say, oh, this is cellular respiration because don't they do both? Like, it's not like, and they're not wrong. If they represented it correctly on this, then I would give them credit for that. Because it doesn't explicitly say anything about um, a one particular cellular process that's going on. It's not asking, it doesn't say anything about that. At least I don't think so in the question. So what they're really looking for is the broader kind of NGSS DCI of matter cycling and energy flow is really what I think that question is designed to ask. But to everybody's point, there is a certain amount of messiness, engineered messiness, to some of these questions because they want to see how students can use their scientific reasoning to answer these questions. So I don't think Madison, I'm 1,000% with you. I think it could be either answer in this, is the bottom line. And I'm guessing that's why, as Eve pointed out, that it says acceptable responses include instead of are limited to, or this is the answer. A lot of times when we think of assessments, we think of training, like we think, at least how I was trained, was to write the question so that there is one right answer. And there's no other answer that could possibly be the explanation. And sometimes this has challenged me a little bit to think outside of that box, especially when it comes to open-ended, of there could be a couple different interpretations of the same evidence. And that doesn't make one interpretation invalid. I mean, obviously there are logical fallacies that go along with that, but that's really where the scientific reasoning assessment piece comes in.
Can I ask, is everyone using New Visions? Are there any other curriculum that besides New Visions that
That's a great question.
people have tried?
Illinois storyline.
There's
Um,
other ones out there, but a lot of schools are being mandated to use New Visions if you're in the DOE. So most DOE schools are being told we have to use that. We're not given the choice.
Yeah. Or Open Science. I don't know if anyone tried it.
Yeah, Open Science I tried once, like a couple years ago, with a prep class I was doing, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot more clear than New Visions. It had like very straight up, like this is what you do kind of lessons, and all the materials were prepared for you, which is a lot nicer. I feel like New Visions, I have to prepare all the PowerPoints and things. So
Sorry, sorry to interrupt. I just had a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Did I hear you say that the DOE is mandating that all of their schools use the New Visions curriculum?
maybe not the entire DOE, but maybe it's certain districts. It might depend on who your superintendent is. But my school is mandating it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm mandated to.
So didn't New Visions just change their curriculum, or is it the same old New Visions curriculum?
They're mandating the New Visions biology curriculum, not the living environment.
But it's updated. It's been updated over the summer. So
Yes.
if your school is connected with New Visions, you are going to go to PDs during the day. So your principal may say, hey, you have to go to this PD. So you're also missing instruction, no time. I'm just going to smile for that one.
Oh, you mean if you work for the DOE?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's not every school, because I haven't gotten any PD opportunities except for this, which is on my own time.
Yeah, so we are partnered. So everyone in, well, earth science as well, we have to go PD. So every month, basically, you're choosing a PD to go to. They come in and support. If anything, I haven't seen anyone come in, but your principal will send you sorry, I have to log off. Okay. So they will send you a notification like, hey, we're starting unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, or whatever. And you go. If you're not getting those emails, you should ask your principal, because if you've been to a PD before, if you're specifically using New Visions, you should ask them. That means you're just not on the list. They just have to add you. And
Well, we're supposed to be using New Vision, but they're giving us flexibility to supplement as needed. So I guess it's very loose as far as how much. I'm also middle school, and it's a little bit of a unique situation where our students completely skip 8th grade. So there's a lot of content that was never taught to them that New Visions, I feel like, makes the assumption that they've learned this information, build on it. So the head is exploding with just trying to fill in gaps and do New Vision as well. So I feel like I'm teaching 8th grade and 9th grade at the same time.
So I have another textbook that I use. It's called SAVVA, Savis. Have anyone? So they have updated their textbook to incorporate NGSS as well.
Is it the Let's Prepare for the
one with Miller? I'll show you the textbook now. It's right here. So they have updated it. They have online resources. So if the student is missing gaps, it kind of like supports that.
Mhm.
I don't know if you want to. Sorry for cutting you, Chris.
No, that's fine. Yeah. No, this is why this group started. I think
that's from a conference. Yeah. He gave it to me, but I got it somewhere here. I got a few books from the conference. I think Peter Gay has a copy too. Peter Gay, is she here? Oh, so this is I don't know if you could see it. Oh,
I do. I'm here.
I think you have this one too, right?
Yeah, I had that one.
So this is the one that I've been using as support, especially if there are 8th grade students that may not understand or conceptualize some of the concepts. And they have updated everything with the standards, incorporated a lot of like projects that students can do as well. And I see a lot of connection with New Visions in here. So it's called Biology Miller and Levine Savis, but it's before Miller and Levine has always been out, but this is just more updated with the updated standards. So I've been using this as support as well. You just have to read a few, but this is a little more reading.
Which year is that version?
This is the most updated one. I think this was released.
What edition is it?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 2023 or 2020. It just got released now.
Okay, thank you.
This is, oh my God, Peter Gay. When was it? I'm trying to look too.
Does it have a B on the front?
No, it's just It's the yellow one. I don't know if it's fully released yet. I got it from the science conference in November. They had like a bunch of books and we were taking them, like snatching them.
Mm-hmm.
So Peter Gay got a few and I took a few. They gave me this one. But this one is far more updated with more current information. So if I look at the first chapter, there's like problem-based learning, case study, and then there's a performance-based assessment in there. But they also have the online resource where it's interactive and include they have updated everything, making sure that it's NGSS and phenomenon-based. You could use it as support. You don't have to, but I looked at the DOE platform and I did see this as an option or on the bio site. If your school is not using New Visions, I've seen it there. We're all here to support each other. And I can speak from my experience. It's because I've, networked so much that I've been able to get several resources from other teachers as well. They share resources. I'll share the resources that's been shared with me as well. And we could all support each other, okay, as much as we can. That's why we're a group. Okay.
One of the biggest learnings I've had in transitioning to this style over the last 10-ish years or so is the community is huge. Having a community, having a support network, having a group is humongous. And sometimes I feel like that's hard when we're all siloed in our classrooms and it's hard to talk with our neighbors, our classroom neighbors and things like that. But having that core group that's all working towards the same thing is humongous. And so that's, I think, what we're trying to build, or at least start to build here as well, is to really try and connect up with folks that, haven't had the time to to talk with their neighbors and things like that, their classroom neighbors and things, and hopefully kind of start this grassroots change and help really support each other. So this is what the new standards look like. Okay, there are basically NGSS and New York State, because New York State basically took NGSS and added one or two things to it, is designed to be three-dimensional. Does that sound familiar to folks? Cool. Okay, so we're good on that part. So if we're going down to life science, hold on, I can't see. I got too many windows open. Where you want to look in terms of content stuff, that would be in here. So there actually is less stuff. There's less like human anatomy, plant stuff, things like that. That's not part of, that's beyond the scope of NGSS. So it is removed. It does have some stuff removed. I'd have to pull up the old standards to do like a specific side by side of what's going on. But that is one thing we noticed in Jersey, is that there's less specific content that they need to know and more like bigger categories of things, concepts that they do need to know and be able to like apply and use. Something I do like to do is especially if I'm trying to backfill some of that information, and this, Eve, something you said made me think about it, is kind of pull the UDL card and give them options of what they can do for homework. So they can watch a video, they could read this background information, they could listen to this podcast, whatever it is. Like, they have a couple different options for how they want to backfill it. So at least then they can pick and choose like what they think is a good thing, like what will help them out the most. And the students I've had are really receptive to that, because there are some times where I think they're all going to watch a video and half of them actually want to read the article. And I was like, what? Really? That surprises me. I was not expecting that to happen. But sometimes they do, and that's okay too.
So regarding pacing, the students are required a lot to refer to their model. So their initial model, what they think is happening to the marathon runner, and then adding on to it as they learn the content, and then explaining their model. What does that model mean to them? Because it's the model that they created. So that is an example of a model of what's happening in regards to homeostasis. But the content is what they're learning to apply to the model itself. Everyone get it? No?
Yes.
So,
Yes, that's very helpful.
because how would you explain the model if you don't know the content? So you go through experiences, you go through investigations, and you go back, oh, I've learned this. It could possibly be because of overheating. Okay, so maybe the person overheated. And I mean, they have some great models that students come up with. I'm like, wow.
I have a document that just sort of lays out all of this stuff. I'll put that in the resources too, of like all the different like SCPs and the different cross-cutting concepts. Because those are like, they look big and everything like that, but when you read through them as like a science teacher, you're kind of like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, I know that's what we want to do. And so the trick with that three-dimensional lesson planning and learning is to try and get all three of those dimensions, the cross-cutting, the DCI, and the SCPs, kind of woven together into the lesson, rather than just kind of focusing on just the DCI.
Got it.
They don't want students just to memorize the content. They want them to be able to apply it across everything. So you may not learn just analyze and interpreting graphs or data in my class, but how can this connect to another scenario in another class? So I think Chris did do that over the summer, where he shared an article. But when you look at it, it's also social science, like life science. Everything is coming to, even geology, but it's not just, okay, we're just only going to focus on life science. How can we connect everything and still apply those skills? So you've learned this skill. Now I could go into another scenario and understand what's happening, and I could apply it there, regardless of the content.
And for those that teach AP, they do almost the same thing on the AP exam now, where it's just like, here's a scenario you've never seen before. You have some specific concepts and you know how to, it's kind of like model literacy of interpreting a model or interpreting, I call it image literacy, or interpreting an image and then being able to take that image and make some kind of meaning out of it with that background concept that you now have some understanding of. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. There's definitely a lot. And if you're still sitting there going brain explosion, I'm still in brain explosion mode. Like 10 years, we're still into it. We're still working on it. We've gotten much better with it, but it takes time. It definitely does take time.
I can't believe New Jersey's been doing it for 10 years.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
because we're really cutting past the time frame.
Go for it, Rose.
What do the assessments in New Jersey look like? Because I think you're asking us to come up with some questions, and there's not enough time to do that. But I
Right.
was wondering, what do the assessments look like in New Jersey?
So we don't have individual subject assessments. We have the students in science will take a science assessment in 11th grade, which they have to pass. And that's more of a comprehensive type of assessment where it has physics, chemistry, some biology, things like that. It does look somewhat similar to the question clusters that New York State released, where they're given a scenario and they have to actually try and formulate some ideas and things like that, or apply ideas or use the models based on that for some things that are not explicitly part of the curriculum, but things that they have to apply it to. But I think that is the one big difference between us and New York is we're not like subject specific. So they take one test at the end of their junior year. The New Jersey State Science Learning Standards exam.
So, Chris, is it possible to pull some biology?
I could try and pull some of that stuff. Yeah, they keep it behind a guarded firewall.
That's why I asked. Yeah, that's
yeah,
exactly
but I can try and get some examples of those as well.
Okay.
And I do think, even though we didn't get to create a question cluster today, I have found it extremely helpful to try and create question clusters and to create like standards questions for myself to give on tests and stuff like that. And I think that sometimes the act of creating that, you can really get a good sense of the skills and what thought actions you want the kids to be thinking about as you're creating it. Like it's a useful practice. So if you have some time to do it, definitely I would give it a try.
Like practice even with just do one, like, okay, so whatever topic you're covering tomorrow, just try to do it and then just do it as a do now and see how it turns out. It may take time, but just like we want our students to have this skill and develop a specific skill, it's okay to try one question at a time and then modify and even improve as you go along, or even send it to us. Say, hey, or send it and say, hey, Chris, this is the question I have. What do you think about it? What should I improve in it? We're here to support each other, and we could give each other feedback as well.